Officials have been trying for decades to control and remove carp from Malheur Lake. This year, Mother Nature is serving them up on a platter. The lake is so low, carp are leaving the lake and concentrating in the Blitzen River, where wildlife managers are scooping them up by the ton.
Tell me about the operation we're seeing today.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got people doing certain projects, certain parts of the job.
Well, we've been using a couple of different methods. Right now, we're electroshocking with some hand wands in the river. And what that does is the shocking stuns the carp. And then as the carp are stunned, we net them up, and then we move the carp to a loader.
These are big fish that weigh an average of 15 pounds. Good reflexes are required to net them, strength to carry them, and coordination to toss them into bins for collection. The scene reminds me of Pike's Place Fish Market in Seattle, where vendors toss salmon around putting on a show for shoppers. But here on the refuge, the carp are being thrown with a bit of vengeance because they inflict serious damage on the ecosystem.
Malheur Lake at one time could produce up to about 150,000 birds.
And what kind of production do you see these days?
Nothing.
And it's changed that much.
It's changed, yes. It's been an ecological transition from the emergent marsh to what we have now, which is a turbid lake environment.
And the carp have a role in that turbidity. How did the carp impact Malheur Lake?
Through their feeding patterns, continually stir up the sediments, and the sediments block the sunlight which plants need to grow. And so without that sunlight, that important component of the marsh is lost.
Another silver lining of drought is a huge crop of native vegetation emerging from the exposed lake bed, out of reach of the carp. The race is on to remove as many carp as possible before the lake level rises in the spring.
When Malheur Lake is big, we could have millions of fish. Now we probably have much less fish. There's no water in the lake deep enough for fish, so all the fish are in the river and their population is extremely low. So every single one we knock out, we're really knocking the population down right now.
The goal is to remove 75 to 80% of the carp in the system. Wildlife managers are focused on the large spawners. Just one of them can ruin all this effort.
A common carp, female, gravid, 2 million, maybe 3 million eggs. We actually cut open a giant one that was probably closer to 5 million eggs a couple years ago when they're in good condition. Now they haven't been able to spawn well the last 2 years because of the drought. Carp need to spawn on vegetation, and the lake has been so low, there's very little vegetation out there, so they haven't had any opportunities to spawn in the lake, and there's only a small portion of the river where they can spawn. This year I've only seen 3 fish that were born this year.
Staff from federal, state, and local agencies, as well as volunteers, came from miles around to help remove the carp.
I've always been interested in natural resources, so I just kind of decided to take that career path, or get a degree in that area. And so when he asked if we could do this for our lab, I was pretty excited.
Yeah, it's better than being in a classroom.
So what becomes of all these carp? Refuge managers have tried for years to develop markets for them. Commercial fishermen tried catching them with hook and line and turning them into liquid fertilizer, but the carp's large scales clogged the sprayers. A gathering of international chefs was held in Portland a few years ago to make gourmet dishes with carp to increase their appeal in local restaurants. But in a land of salmon, trout, halibut, and sturgeon, there's just no demand for carp.
On a small scale, we have local individuals who are interested in carp for their garden, and we're willing to provide carp to you if you want to come out and take them home, and they make great fertilizer.
So how does the public get a hold of that source?
We don't do this during certain times of the year, and we don't necessarily do it every year, but if they call us, we can tell them when we're going to be doing this work and encourage them to come out, bring a bag, bring a bucket, bring a pickup truck, bring a dump truck, whatever you want, we'll give it to you.
A local farmer takes a lot of these carp, drops them in a hole in the ground, and mixes them with cow manure and straw. When it's broken down into compost, the concoction is applied to alfalfa, which reportedly grows up to 7 feet tall.
The size of the lake is very dependent on how big it is the year before, and it's not very big right now. So we're not anticipating a huge lake next year, and so it's possible that a lot of this vegetation could survive. So that's why we're putting full effort into the carp removal to try to give that vegetation the biggest possible chance at survival.
From the Carp Roundup on the Malheur Wildlife Refuge, I'm Brooks Snavely for The Great Outdoors.